Do you plan to stay with the department until that time in order to get your pension?
Well, I'm not sure that I wouldn't already have that. I don't, the way it's written, I know it goes into effect, but it passed last fall. Last fall when it passed, I already had more than 30 years, and I'm more than 50 years of age. I'm 54. So I believe we already have that. I'm not concerned with that, and I don't believe the pension board would not vote to allow me to have it. If we have it, and that's the way it is, they're not giving me anything. I've earned it. What a lot of people don't realize is all of the money that I have in my retirement account now, and all of these officers have in their retirement account. Mine is around $400,000. It goes into that. I don't take that. All of that money goes into that account. So it's not like all the retirement I've been paying and setting aside in like a 401k. I'm taking it and then taking the retirement. It doesn't work that way. We give that money up. It goes back into the pool. And then everyone draws from that retirement if they wish to choose that particular retirement.
Will you, or do you want to, in some capacity, though, still remain involved in the Sheriff's Department, a part of this Sheriff's Department, having a voice somewhat in the department? Not that of Sheriff, obviously, but is that in your intent?
Well, whoever the sheriff is, and again, that will be determined on Wednesday. Whoever the sheriff is, I'll obviously be available to help them. They're going to need some help for a while. Again, our government's kind of been turned upside down in this fruit basket turnover, and this is not a time when this department needs to be vulnerable, and it needs to have people around that fully understand. I'll be available to whoever the sheriff is by phone or however to come in and help work on the budget. Matter of fact, we're going to start on that. This week before I even leave is the annual budget that we work on. We're getting ready to do that even before we leave, and so we're preparing those things now, and that's one of the hardest things that the new sheriff will have to deal with. First up is a new budget.
Let's talk about some things that you've dealt with that you may or may not be able to finish up. The Tyler Harbor situation. Anything coming out of that prior to you leaving?
As a matter of fact, it was released this weekend, and so it's been released, and I needed to get that finished so it didn't impact the next sheriff. I didn't read it, didn't have any input. The investigators and detectives worked that case. I had to hands off on that case and left them. I said, however it goes is the way it goes, and treat it like any other case. They did. They wrote it. And they went and had it printed, and it's released, and it is what it is.
What about the John Berry case? I know this has been one that your department has worked on for a long time, put a lot of man-hours, a lot of effort into this. Your reaction, knowing that it more than likely won't be solved, or at least I'm saying this, I'm not sure what your department is, where you are with it, but that it more than likely, from our vantage point, won't be solved by the time you leave office. Is that frustrating?
Well, it's always frustrating when we have one that's unsolved, because we have one of the highest solvability percentage rates in the country. The average is around 50 to 54%, and ours is around 90-91%. And you have seen, such as the double homicide we just had a couple weeks ago. We joined with KPD, and you saw how we investigate those things. I put a huge number of people on those cases, always right on the front end. And that's why we have a higher rate, I believe, is the approach that we take to solving them. We did the same approach in the John Berry. We have DNA, and it will be solved one day. But it is frustrating us not knowing yet exactly who it is. But it could be one of, where we're still waiting on about 40 different samples to come back to see if it matches. So it could be one that we already have. The FBI profiler, and our investigators believe it's someone still living here. And that's the way we're treating it right now. That's the reason we haven't gone on the nationwide shows, because if we go on the nationwide shows, then I'm sending detectives to California, to Washington State, to New York, to get DNA from individuals that may never have been in Tennessee ever in their life, but I have to go disprove that. So that's why we're not going way out at this time.
All right, we need to take another quick break. We're going to wrap up our discussion with Sheriff Tim Hutchison right after this. We have just a few more minutes left to talk with Knox County Sheriff Tim Hutchison. During your 5 terms, let's admit, there have been a number of controversies in those terms, dating back to the angel cuffing, the firing range, the building of that, the helicopter use, a number of things. Do you feel you were targeted? Do you feel like you were treated justly, or do you think there were some legit questions out there that needed to be answered?
Oh, a lot of it was twisted for political reasons, obviously. But sometimes, sure, I know that there are some things that we did and that we need to do in law enforcement that we're going to be questioned on and we're going to be criticized. You look at the firing range. Mr. Kessel's the one that said to build it at that location. No one ever talked to Mr. Kessel. No one ever went and said, why did you allow the sheriff to do that at that location? They only said, sheriff did it. And when I told everyone lived in that community, first opportunity I get, I'm going to build an indoor range. And we built a 20-point indoor range, and most of it's being fired indoor, and they don't hear it. There's a brand new development of homes, a new subdivision, that is closer than any one that complained being developed there right now. So it didn't kill the community. It didn't stop development and growth as we knew it wouldn't. And the helicopters we have saved early, after Katrina especially, we have saved hundreds and hundreds of lives with those helicopters. A lot of it is, if you're going to be progressive, and if you're going to move a department ahead, then it's going to cause you some problems, and I know that. But when I look back at the results, we have a firing range we didn't ever have before. When I was here, prior to me being elected, in the first few years I was sheriff, we had to rent a firing range from the Alcoa Police Department and borrow a training classroom for all of our policemen from the Marine base on Alcoa Highway. We had no training facilities, and we were one of the larger departments in East Tennessee, which was crazy. But now we have training facilities, we have a firing range, we have those things that are necessary to have a good professional law enforcement agency. And was that worth the headaches and getting beat on the head quite a bit? Yes, it was.
You appear to have a very strong relationship with current Police Chief Sterling Owen. I don't think it can be said of the same be said of former Chief Phil Keith. What do you think stood in the way of that relationship?
Well, all I can do is talk about myself. I worked with city officers. I worked over at the city, assigned over there in that 1st Metro unit. I still work with city officers. I work great with city officers. I work great with Chief Owen, and it's been a real relief. And I told you that's one of the things that I didn't like the most, was the fact that we couldn't work with the city, and we weren't able to. And it would aggravate them, such as the double homicide we just worked. When we went in and someone asked us to help on a homicide, or we went inside the city under the former chief, they would resent that. They didn't welcome the help. They would resent it. Chief Owen's like, yes, send me all the help you can get, and I'm the same way. If I have a real problem and other agencies call and say, Sheriff, you need some help, I'll be glad to say, yeah, send me some help. I'm glad to have it. And that's the way law enforcement better serves the entire community, and it's been a real blessing after Mayor Haslam was elected and he appointed Chief Owen, and we worked great together.
Will you run for public office again someday?
Well, I've learned to never say never, because I did used to say I'll never run for a public office, and I can't say yes or no to that. Well, that's it. See, one of the reasons I've been asked to go out to other offices and run for other offices before. But I'm a policeman at heart, and that's all I really cared about doing. I stayed here. This was my department. I'm a policeman, and I wanted to be here. Those other offices just didn't, I just didn't really want to go do that. But I'm not saying that I won't go do that. I'm already receiving calls and being asked about running for other offices or consider that, and I may do that in the future. But now I'm just going to enjoy a whole lot of sick days and a whole lot of, I've got all kinds of time built up, and I've got a great family and grandchildren, and I'm going to go spend some time with them.
Well, we certainly appreciate you spending time with us, and the best of luck to you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for always being fair.
We covered a lot of ground in that interview. Some of Sheriff Hutchison's closest officers came together to push Chief Administrative Deputy J.J. Jones forward as the man they hope will be the next sheriff. We heard about how much the sheriff's office has grown in Sheriff Hutchison's time, and while he has no explicit plans to seek any other office, Sheriff Hutchison simply won't rule it out. And so, central figure of Knox County government prepares to make room for someone else. That's our time. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.